everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day to you guys. Whoop whoop, happy Wednesday. Listen, this is part 2 of a T-shirt rag quilt. There are 3 parts, so we've got 1 left. So hey, we're moving right along. This is a fast, easy project. Yes, we're at video 2. So what does that mean? So this week I am going to take you to my cutting board and I'm going to demonstrate about sandwiching. Now, for those of you who are new to quilting, a sandwich is basically the bottom, the top, like your 2 pieces of bread, and then of course the middle of your quilt, which may be batting. In this case, it's flannel, but those 3 parts, just like in a sandwich, 2 pieces of bread and whatever flavors you love. Gosh, man, at the time I'm recording this, it's almost lunchtime, so I'm getting kind of hungry. So talking about sandwiches is making me hungrier. But we are sandwiching and quilting, so I'm going to take you there. And then we're going to talk about, this is a quilt as you go type of quilt. So when you're done, which is always a bonus any time of the day. We all know how much of a bonus that is. So the next step is starting that. Well, no, it's actually every single block we do the quilting. So I'm going to take you back over to the sewing table and give you some ideas. Now I want to share with you before I go to that table. Usually I do between 10 and 12 inch blocks for my t-shirts because I picked that large logo, and this is a really 14-inch block is pretty big. And t-shirts, man, I showed you last week, they're super stretchy, they're unruly, they don't like to behave. And what I have found is the Wonder Clips were not as effective for me. It doesn't help keep those shirts at this size in control. So I actually have started pinning because it just makes it a lot easier. But there's some other tips I want to give you. So I'm going to take you first to that cutting board. We're going to get one of my blocks sandwiched, and then we'll come back and do some quilting. So don't let it scare you. It's easy breezy. Life is good, I promise you. So see you all in just a sec. Okay, believe it or not, this is sandwiched. Couple of things I want to talk about. If you have a logo on the front and on the back, you want to make sure that your logos are facing the same direction on each side. So if this was with the logo on the front and I had the same logo on the back, I want this, I know it's upside down for you guys, but I want this war heel to be on top. And when I flip this over, the war heel would be on top. You want to make sure your logos are facing the same direction, okay? Because whenever you go to quilt this, if they're not, you're going to have an upside down or turned, because this is a perfect square. So the back could be like this, and I wouldn't know it if I didn't check, and the front would be like this, and what a holy mess that would be on your quilt, right? So you do want to pay attention to your logos and which direction they're going, okay? Now, what I love about working, it works the same with batting. Your t-shirts will stick, okay? And it does the same with the flannel. So you can, if it's not perfect or straight in your mind or lined up with your flannel, and it will do this little bit of a wrinkly, you just smooth it out, but don't stretch it, okay? It's very, very important that you don't stretch this. And then once you're done, you want to check your back and make sure that it's all lined up. Flip it back again, making sure that you're lined up and everything looks perfect in your mind. Now, I wasn't going to mention it, but I think it's important. If you're finding that you are not perfect with your t-shirts, are not exactly perfect, it's okay, because not as far as your logo goes or as straight as it goes, but I mean as far as like if in fact it's, well, I'm bending that, but if in fact it's not lined up like it was cut perfect with the flannel, it's okay as long as you have it straight and you're looking good. Now you don't want to be off by 1/2 inch or whatever, but just a smidge is okay because you're going to cut these seams. So don't let that stress you out, please. thought I'd mention it because it can happen when you're cutting your t-shirts. Sometimes without stabilizer, you may pull too much, you may not pull enough, and they're kind of unruly. Like I said, they like to do their own thing, but we are in charge. We're going to make this happen. But I don't want you to freak out if it's just a smidge. Now, like I said, if it's a 1/2 inch, even a 1/4 inch is going to make a difference in your quilting and getting it together. But just a smidge, it's okay, because you're going to cut the seams. It will be fine. Okay, so once you get your bottom, your middle, and your top all on there together, the next thing that I like to do, and like I said earlier, I'm using pins now, okay? So I go through and very easily, I either pin, sometimes I do 4, I'll do 4, because I don't want it to shift. And these guys are so unruly. You will find if they're this large, like I said, I used Wonder Clips with smaller blocks with t-shirts and I didn't have this problem, but I did not like it. So I'll go through and just pin all along, making sure I'm not creating any more wrinkles that need to. All right. And then the next step here I know I need to make this where you're not just watching me pin this whole time. So I'm just going to pin some areas because I know I'm about to show you how I mark my centers. So I don't want them to get away from me when I do this. I'll go back and finish the pinning off camera, but the next thing I do use painter's tape, guys. It works the best, in my opinion, where I don't have to worry about leaving a mark on my t-shirt. Now, if you're comfortable with a marking tool that's different, you can go ahead and do that. And I actually demonstrate that in that first Rag Quilt series that I did about a year or so ago. And I was working with cotton. And I know this is cotton, but especially if I'm doing it for somebody else, with this particular t-shirts, I find that sometimes the way the fibers are woven, you may have some issues getting some of your marking out. So just to be on the safe side, just making sure I'm straight, because I'm starting to see I got a little bit of an issue. All right. Put that back in. I'm going to use the painter's tape. So I already have some done, and I'm going to take you to the sewing table so you can basically understand some other neat little tips I'll share with you when sewing these together. But using the painter's tape, I'm going to get a decent going all the way across. And like I said, if you're interested in marking tools, I do demonstrate some ideas on how to do that in the other video. When you lay down your painter's tape, you want your needle to hit that corner. Okay, so if you put the painter's tape on the corner, your needle's not going to hit it. It's going to hit next to it. So I just line up my painter's tape right alongside here. And notice I put it down on the table. Well, heck, I'll just do it all. That way I know if I pull on this, that to make sure I'm straight, that I'm not going to move it. And I'm not going to move the t-shirt, okay, which is already unruly. So then I line up on the other side along this corner so that I sew on the corner. So it's next to the corner on the same side on both ends, and then I just press it down. And I do this for both directions. So I'm going to sew this side first, and then I'm going to go and this is reusable. You can simply, once you have it sewn, pull it off and put it on the other direction, okay? Because it will stick a number of times. Eventually, if you have a lot of t-shirts or a lot of blocks that you're using it with, eventually it won't be as sticky, or you might find it that it gets kind of wrinkly, or maybe you sewed on it by accident, so you'll have to throw it out. But I usually do 5 blocks at a time. Well, I'm having a hard time lining this back up. So I usually have 5 strips at a time, but I want to show you that it's fully possible to do this. Oh, here we go. All right, there we go. Just going to put it down. I can sew. Can I sew in that corner? It is. Okay. So I'm going to sew along this area to, in my world, it's to the right. It's probably to the left of you. I'm not sure which way you're seeing this, but I'm going to sew on the side of the corner all along, and I'm going to use this tape as a guide. Okay. So I do that to at least 5 blocks and get ready to sew. So of course, get yourself your sandwiches, put your pins on, and then add your tape, and then we'll go to the next step. So I'll see you at the sewing table, guys, in just a sec. Okay, so here we are at my sewing table. If you have machine quilting gloves, this is a really good time to use them. I'm going to show you that if you don't, it's not a necessary, so I'm not going to use them today, although I do typically use them to help make things a little easier in grabbing that fabric. That's what they do. They allow it to be easier to manipulate your whatever fabric you're using. They have like sticky stuff on the tips that allow you to have better management, but it's not necessary with this. So I have already been sewing some of my blocks together, and you'll see this because I do chain piece. And again, that video I did last year shows a lot more in depth on that, but they're loaded because, and there's, this end is still on my needle, under my needle, because I finished this one. I'm going to sew with you the block I sandwiched with you just a minute ago, and I did finish pinning. Okay. And when you do pinning, you can always check to see if you've created wrinkles that aren't necessary, and maybe you need to reposition the fabric out and then repin it. Just take a peek both front and back to make sure you're not creating any extra wrinkles, because these t-shirts can be unruly, and we are in control. We are the boss today. We're the boss. So you want to make sure that's good to go. I do have my Aurifil thread 50 weight loaded. That's what I did talk about that in the first video. I went ahead with the Dove 2600. It just looks really good with all the fabrics. So I do have that loaded, and my machine, I actually do 2.0 for the stitch length. When I turn my machine on, it says 2.5, but it's not my favorite. I like 2. It's whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you stitch with. It doesn't matter with this type of quilt. There's no right or wrong. It's what you feel comfortable with. And I do have the ballpoint, which I will tell you makes a difference when you're stitching. I have stitched with a normal quilting needle or a top stitch or a universal, and I find it feels different when you're going through. With that ballpoint, like I said, it spreads those fibers instead of piercing them, and you can actually tell the difference, and it works a lot better. So I do encourage the ballpoint needle, which I have loaded. So again, I have it. I have a block back here. Now, y'all saw me put a piece of tape down, and I'm going to sew on the side of the corner that's exposed. But what I also do, the corner is on the left on this block. So I'm going to load so the tape is on no, it's the other way around. The tape is on the right on this block. The corner's on the left. On this block, I'm putting the tape on and it's going to be backwards for you guys, but on the left side, and my corner's on the right. That way my tapes don't intersect and they get sticky. That's one of the things you'll see in the other video, is I had some manipulation to work with because my tapes kept getting involved with each other. But you're just simply going to lift your needle and place your corner on that needle right before it. And you want to make sure that you're not flipping anything and you're ready to go. Once you start stitching, I do encourage a back stitch. Y'all know I'm not a big back stitcher, but because the seams are exposed and we're going to be snipping and we're going to be manipulating those seams on the outside of the quilt, it's highly encouraged that you do back stitch when you do rag quilting. Whether you're doing T-shirt rag quilts or regular rag quilts, it's highly encouraged because those seams are going to be manipulated. So I am using, and I'll throw a picture up on another, right here on another block to show you that I'm using my tape as a guide. Now I'm lining it up with my walking foot. If by some weird thing happens, now I got my tape sticking, where you stitch on the tape by accident, it's okay. Don't freak out. Just get reorganized, re-straightened, and just go ahead and keep stitching, utilizing that tape as your guide. The other thing I want to mention when you're stitching with this, these T-shirts like to crinkle and they like to get wrinkly. Make sure, don't stretch it. Don't sit here and pull really, really hard because it will go. It will stretch. And when you do that, when you let go, it'll shrink again. So you may not be where you thought you were, but you want it flat. So just make sure wherever you're stitching that it stays flat. Now y'all see I'm not a fast stitcher. Y'all know that. I've actually gotten a little faster than what I used to be, but this is not a race. So wherever you're comfortable, that's fine. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Don't think you're inadequate because you see somebody, oh, let's just talk. Kimberly Jolly, a fat quarter, man, she's the fastest sewer ever. And it just whoop, whoop, whoop. It's amazing to watch. Absolutely amazing. But I'm not that person. And if you're not, don't let it stress you out. You sew at the speed that you're comfortable with. The last thing I want to mention to you is don't watch your needle, okay? It's so easy to want to watch your needle and to see that it's going where you want it to go. But the way that your head works, your eyes work with your head and your hands, if you look ahead where you want to stitch, your body and your mind will compensate and you'll get a much cleaner, straighter line that way. So don't watch the needle, watch ahead of the needle to get the sewing done. Now I can start feeling that it's getting bulky for some reason. Don't think I'm stretching it enough. There we go. Okay. And you'll feel it. You'll feel the any kind of wrinkles or bulking up that you don't want. You just want to make sure you stay nice and flat and don't get your finger underneath the needle bar because it hurts. I've done it. I'm sure y'all have too if you're experienced. But once it's through, the next step that I do, well, at the very end, don't forget, you want to back stitch. All right, so I'm going to leave this block underneath my needle. I've got my thread snippers. And y'all, I've done a lot of single first stitching, okay? To include the first one that I did use the Wonder Clips, and that's when I figured out that this size block wasn't going to work. So I'm basically going to the block I just sewn and the last one that was on there, and I'm going to snip that itty bitty piece. Oh, y'all can't see that, but there's a small piece of thread. Snip that off. Lay this block back out. And it doesn't matter which, if you keep them in order or not at this point, because we're not even talking about design at this point. We're just doing the quilt part to make sure that our 3 pieces are staying together. So what I'll do is I'll sit here and clip each one of these blocks, the thread that's in between them. I just sit here and snip them apart and lay them out. Oh, and here's one where the logos need to be the same direction. Remember I talked about that? So at this point, you'll do all of that with your blocks, but the one that you need to sew, you're just going to want to pull off the tape, turn it, make sure everything is still staying nice and flat. Okay, now you want to do the other X. So I'm just going to simply lay down my tape, corner to corner again. And I say that, but remember, you need to make sure that you're leaving the corner exposed so that you have something to snip. Now remember, I said I sewed with the tape on the left of this block and the corner on the right. So now I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make sure that my tape is on the right and my corner is on the left. I'm going to reload it, and I'm going to do this for each one. Okay. And then what do? We backstitch. It's very important on this particular type of project. Keeping everything as straight as you can and as flat, but don't stretch that fabric, guys. Please don't stretch that fabric, because you'll be angry at yourself later, because this t-shirts, they'll stretch for you and it'll be very easy to stretch, and then it'll shrink back up and you may not like what you did. And I don't think I've ever ripped a seam with a t-shirt quilt, with a rag style t-shirt quilt. I don't think I've ever done that. But then you're going to just simply keep sending each one of your blocks through, so that when you're done, you will have an X, which is your quilting, on each one of your blocks. Just making sure everything is staying nice and flat. Trying to keep my line straight. I can see that it's not. There we go. It's not a race. If you're super slow, if you're super fast, great. If not, don't hold it against yourself. Don't beat yourself up. It's okay. Trust me. Oh, and at the end, whew, almost forgot. And then you would simply take the next one, which I'll do. Pull the tape off. Turn it. Line up the next side of your X. Now that one I did the tape on the right, so now I want the tape on the left so they don't hit each other and get stuck. Line this up underneath. Go ahead and give a couple stitches. Go ahead and backstitch. And get your X finished. Let's see. I don't know. I might have to take a picture because I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Oh, this one I haven't done yet. All right. So we'll put that aside. I've only gotten one side done. Oh, and that one's not far enough along. Let's see here for just a second. All right, I'm gonna snip this off real quick. All right. Hope you can see that X. That's what you're gonna do. Here's the other side of it. Each one of your blocks needs that X. That's your rag quilt style. So that's your project for this week. Get all your sandwiches made and get all your X's sewn. Now, I'll be with you in just a second because I'm going to turn the camera back to where I normally sit and talk with you guys. And I got just something else to add, and so I'll see you guys in just a second. Okay. So I just wanted to bring you in because I promise you I'm walking you through my thought process on this dilemma that I shared. Now, first and foremost, when we talk about these T-shirt rag quilts, it's best if you use the type of logo that's printed on your T-shirts. But I wasn't thinking, like I said last week when I cut this one up, and I really want to save this and I want to use it. I mean, it's a Hard Rock Cafe fake T-shirt from Cyprus, which my husband spent some time in, and we had visited him as a family when he was stationed there for a little while. So I don't want to put it aside and put it in a different type of T-shirt. Or quilt. I want to go ahead and use it. So my thoughts are, I can't get my walking foot to go through all that. It's going to be, these T-shirts, like I told you, they can be unruly, and I really want to be able to keep control and not have puckers or a lot of shifting. So I'm going to, because I'm in the quilting stage, I am going to go ahead and spray baste. I think that's probably the easiest and fastest method. And at first I thought I would use my free motion quilting foot just to be sure that I didn't have any puckers. But if it's spray basted, I'll be fine. So I am going to go ahead and spray baste this T-shirt onto the flannel, and I'm going to use my walking foot. And I'm going to go ahead, just like every other quilt, and go corner to center. Before I do that though, I'm going to actually do some echoing with my walking foot around the logo. Now, if you're not familiar with echoing, basically you're going to trace it, and I'm going to be about a quarter of an inch, maybe more. I'm going to use my walking foot as the distance. To help keep that consistency. It doesn't have to be perfect, just remember that. But I'm going to echo it first, and then I'm going to go from that echo line to the corner on each one of them to try to keep consistency, and probably put it in the middle. That way, because it's a little different, it won't be kind of weird if I put it up in a corner. But I wanted to give you an idea behind that. Now, once I get this done next week, that'll be the first thing that I talk about, how it worked. But if you're not wanting to do any of that and you want to make this as simple as possible, just pick those logos that are printed on top, and you won't have to worry about anything related to that. You can just do your X's and get her done. But I wanted to share this because, like I said, I didn't think about it when I cut it. And once I did, I was like, well, gee, I can't do an X. So I'll share with you all next week. And also next week, we're going to be finishing up the quilting. So there's a couple more steps, and we'll have this all finished and ready to go. So I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I had. Thank you all for stopping by. If you have any questions, any comments, don't hesitate to drop them down below. You can also email me. We can have personal discussions if there's anything that you may have questions or concerns about. More than happy to help you. Truly, this is a great T-shirt quilt. Wait till you see the end. You're going to love it. But I will be there, or be here, not here on YouTube, but here at Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just like every other Wednesday when I drop a video, or any time I drop a video, I go ahead and do a live Q&A, quilting and answers, as we like to call them, here at Halo. So I'll see you at 3 p.m. today if you follow along on the Halo page. But until next time, guys, get them sandwiched, get them quilted. I'll see you next week. But until then, may y'all continue to be inspired, productive, and ever so joyful, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true, guys. We totally believe in you. We are back here cheering you on, and never let go of it. Happy quilting to you. I'll see y'all next week. Love y'all. See y'all soon.